You ready? You ready? Okay. Hello everyone and welcome to another video at the Liberty Homestead. Today we are going to be making a super easy, simple recipe for dill pickles. We are following the hamburger dill recipe out of the Ball Blue Book of Preserving, which I will link down in the description. So for today's recipe, you will need your cucumbers. I'll show you the right way to cut those in just a moment. Pickle crisp is optional. You will need your canning supplies. We have a canner right here. You need a stock pot with a lid, and you will need pickling or canning salt. It's very important that you use actual canning or pickling salt and not just table salt, because table salt, yes, table salt has a bunch of different additives in it that's going to make your brine cloudy. You are going to need mustard seed, which you can see for a minute, dill, and peppercorns. Your other canning supplies, so like a funnel and some kind of spatula, skewer, something to get the air bubbles out. You'll need jars, rings, and brand new lids. Even among the rebel granny canners, there is controversy about whether or not to reuse lids, so we're not going to reuse lids. And of course, 5% vinegar. Busy toddler who likes to put things inside other things, optional. Yeah, that's you! These cucumbers have already been washed. They've been scrubbed with a brush to get all the little spiky bits off. Now, Ball will tell you that you can only use pickling cucumbers, but this here is a regular cucumber, as is this. If you pick them small enough and the seeds aren't developed, then you can use them for pickles. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your cucumber, and I am doing slices. You are going to cut off the blossom end of the cucumber. So up here is the stem that was attached to the plant. This is the blossom end, and that's because it has enzymes in it that will make your cucumbers go soft. A lot of recipes will say to cut off 1/16 of an inch. Some people swear by cutting off an inch. I'm going somewhere in between. Yeah, and then we're gonna cut them. I like kind of thick pickles, so we're gonna cut them about 1/4 of an inch. And this one got a little lopsided, so we're gonna share with the busy toddler. Now, the first recipe that I did actually took the Ball Blue Book recipe, but also added a saltwater soak beforehand. And that's because there are a lot of granny recipes that require that, but I decided it might leave them a little too salty for general population on YouTube, and so that's why we're redoing it. Of course, if you do like salty pickle, you can totally do that. That would just require soaking your cucumbers in salt water with 1/3 of a cup or 1/2 of a cup, depending on the weight of your cucumbers, of canning salt for 2 to 3 hours. And what that does is it gets out the extra moisture, which I had also done because some of my cucumbers were a little bigger. We have our plethora of cucumbers here. Now we are going to get the canner ready. So this is a standard enamel canner, water bath canner. We have our rack because you cannot let your jars rest on the bottom. This will hold them suspended over the hot water to get our jars warm while we fill them. You're going to want warm jars because we're going to do a hot brine. So when you're canning, you want everything to either be hot or everything to be cold. Otherwise, your jars could break, a whole bunch of bad things could happen. So we are just going to put a bunch of water in here and get it going on the stove. I have filled it up to about this line. When everything is said and done, you're probably going to have to add water in here to cover your jars, but we also don't want it to take forever to get our jars warm, so we're gonna start there. We have our canning rack, put our clean jars. Oh, that was a mistake. Mama's gonna learn her lesson on that one, huh? Let's scoot over a little bit here. As you can see, we are using pints. We're gonna go with 9. So we take this and We suspend it over our hot water. Now, while this is going and getting our jars warm, we are going to start our brine. For our brine, we will need 1 quart plus half a cup of water, 1 quart of our 5% vinegar, and 6 tablespoons of our pickling salt. Don't worry, lady, you'll be able to help real soon. Now this brine will yield you about 7 pints. I think I'm going to have a little more yield than last time. Last time I actually only had 5, and the nice thing about this brine is you can actually put it in jars and it'll keep for about a week. So we're gonna add this to our pot here. So now we're gonna get this on the stove with our lid. And the goal is to get it to a boil. Nice rolling boil. This is her decoy remote control, by the way. Got some blocks for entertainment while we wait. And now is where our busy toddler comes in. If you have a toddler who really likes putting things inside other things, now is their time to shine. So this is her favorite part. So you're going to, yeah. Our jars are warm, but they're not too hot to handle. They're gonna be sitting above the steam for a little bit. So they'll get nice and toasty before it's time for them to go in the water or get the brine. And we are going to try to pack these as much as a toddler allows and give a generous 1/2 inch of headspace. Now, if you're new to canning, then headspace is the amount of air or space left in the top of the jar. And what's really cool about these mason jars is you can kind of use the rings as an indicator. Otherwise, you can use a tool like this. So the 1/2 inch mark is here. And so you can see this lines up pretty closely with this ring right there. All right, I think that's pretty good, lady. You want to try to pack them in tightly without crushing them. It's a fine line. Oh, thank you. Let's get our next jar while Mama puts in the seasonings. There you go. Fill it up. All right, while she is doing that, happily, you are going to want to add to each jar 2 pieces of dill, a 1/2 teaspoon of mustard seed, optional pickle crisp, 1/8 teaspoon. Also, you're going to add 2 peppercorns per jar, but since they are suspended above the water, it's easy to go back and add them if you forget them like I did. I am also going to add an optional garlic clove. These are pretty small. I grew them. I planted them and forgot about them is really a more accurate description. So they're pretty small, but they pack a punch, and they're not, 1 clove is not going to change the processing time. How you doing there, lady? You doing good? Oh, let's move them away from the edge. And we're just going to put it back in our rack. You're doing such a good job. Mama is so impressed. She's a very good helper. Now our brine is at a boil. So now what we're going to do is we are going to reduce the heat and let it simmer for 10 minutes. Now our brine is done simmering, so we're gonna put this back here. I normally fill my jars at the stove, but I'm going to do one here for you guys for demonstration purposes. It's gonna go back on the burner right after we fill up this jar. You're going to take one of your hot jars off of your canner. You're gonna take a funnel. We're going to ladle in our brine up until about that 1/2 inch mark. How's the cucumber? Oh, that looks so pretty. We are going to take our spatula, skewer, whatever you have handy, and we're going to press on the edges. Try to get any air pockets out. You want to get out any big pockets or big bubbles. With things other than pickles, it's a lot easier. You actually would just swipe around the edge. And then after you get your bubbles out, if you have to adjust the headspace and add more brine, then you do. Then you are going to take a paper towel that has been wet with some vinegar, and you are going to wipe your rim. Take a clean lid and a clean non-toddler-fied ring, put it on and screw it to fingertip tight with just 2 fingers and a thumb, because if you over tighten, you can also have some problems. And we're just going to put it back on our rack. Look how pretty that looks. I will do one more to show you guys, and then we're gonna go back to the stove. Okay. So again, like there's a big air bubble right there, but you can actually see. Yeah. Oh, that doesn't go in here, lady. Yeah, we already filled our jars. Also, as I'm getting out these air bubbles here, when you process anything in a canner, the liquid is going to boil. Do not mistake air bubbles for the bubbles from boiling at the end when we take this back out of our canner. It's very different. Those bubbles are okay and will go away as the product cools. You took our paper towel. I hope that vinegar was delicious. Wipe our rim, lid, ring, fingertip tight. Bam. Thank goodness for control lock on stoves. Hey, baby. Our jars are filled. The toddler is getting impatient. We take our canning rack, those are full jars, and we drop it in. Now you might remember how earlier I said we were going to have to add water to our canner. Now is the time. Once your jars are in there, you're going to want to add enough hot water so that your jars are covered by at least 1 inch of water. Also during this stage, you can add some vinegar to the water. All that's really going to do is stop the jars from getting water stained. It's not anything that's necessary. Now that our jars are covered with the appropriate amount of water, you're going to put on your lid. And now we wait for the rolling boil. Once we hit our rolling boil, we are going to start a timer for 15 minutes because this recipe requires 15 minutes of processing time for pints. Once the 15 minutes is up, we are going to remove the cover, we are going to turn off the heat and set another timer for 5 minutes to allow our jars to cool. Once they're cooled, you're going to take them out and you're going to put them on a dish towel on your counter away from drafts, and you let them sit for 12 to 24 hours. You're also going to hear some pinging of the jar sealing. Whee! Anything that does not seal at that point, you can put in the fridge. Thank you. and use it like you would refrigerator pickles within a month. All right, our 5 minutes are up. Use our jar lifter. And, oh, here we go. And we're going to place them on a towel. You don't really have to worry about knocking the water off the top. You can, you don't have to. So there we have it. We have our dill pickles, our easy hamburger dill pickles from the Ball Blue Book of Preserving. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something. I will include links to all of the canning items and the recipe used down in the description. Now it's time for Mama to go make supper, so I will see you in the next one.